Good afternoon, students. I want to welcome you to Business Studies in Form 4. Today's topic being Money and Banking. This is the third topic in Form 4. We've picked a topic that we want to believe that almost all of us were getting into this, so that we'll be consistent with hopefully what we've been covering in school before we took the early break. So in Form 1, we were introduced to home trade, and from that point we were able to define trade as the exchange of goods and services for a consideration. So that is the definition that we give to trade. You'll give out goods, and in exchange, you'll also be able to receive something. Now, in today's discussion, we are going to pick up from there, and our starting point will be to see where trade began, or precisely what was the form of trade at the start. And initially, when people were trading, they used to exchange commodities for other commodities. So, for instance, somebody has a goat, and they are in need of maize. They could take their goat, go to the market, look for somebody who has maize, and at the same time they need a goat, and they could exchange. That was the genesis of trade, because common knowledge tells us that you're not able to produce everything that you need. So this form of trade, where commodities were being exchanged for other commodities, is what we call barter trade. So a simple definition of barter trade is exchange of commodities for other commodities. Now, having defined barter trade, we can see that this form of a trade has a unique requirement that has to be there for this trade to take place, and that is what we call double coincidence. Or once. Now, for this trade to be successful, there has to be a double coincidence. By that we mean that this person must identify a person with what they need, and at the same time, this person who has what they need is also in return in need of what this person is selling. So you can see it was quite a tasking form of trade, because you have to look for such a person. So now let's look at the good thing about this barter trade. When people trade in this form of trade, what are the merits? What are the merits? So the first thing that you're going to see is that one gets the product immediately. So when you go back to the person who had a goat and was looking for maize, immediately they spot this person and they agree on exchange, then this person will go home a happy person, because they'll have gotten maize immediately. The other advantage is that there is ability to dispose surplus. Surplus is excess of something that we produce. You can look at this farmer, for instance. Maybe he's a farmer of goats, and he has so many goats, more than what he can maybe consume. So in this opportunity will give him a chance to exchange some goats for maize. So the goats that he doesn't need are the surplus. Number 3, it promotes social relations. It It promotes social relations between the trading parties. When this person goes out and meets this other person, then out of that interaction, there is going to be an enhanced relationship between the parties that are trading. They will no longer be traders, they will no longer be strangers to one another, but they will be brought socially closer to one another. The other advantage of this is that it promotes specialization. It promotes specialization. Again, in Form 1, when we're looking at production, we encountered this term specialization, where we're saying that somebody gets into line of production where they are best at. It promotes people's standards of the ways that it makes this better is because they are able to enjoy even commodities that they've not produced. This person is able to enjoy maize, yet they've not done this farming because barter trade has given them a platform to get what they don't need. So their lives becomes better. We're also going to look at the flip side of this. That is, once we look at the merits, we also look at the other side, and that is now on the demerits. We'll not look at the demerits as such, but we look at them, or rather the negative side now, in the form of limitations. And when we're now looking at the limitations of barter trade, we are briefly looking at the things that were making this form of trade very difficult, or the challenges that people are encountering when they were practicing barter trade. The first challenge was lack of double coincidence. Lack of double coincidence of ones. You might find a scenario where somebody has a certain commodity, they are going to take it to the market looking forward to getting what they need, but when they get to the market, they miss out on a person who has what they need, and at the same time, they need what this other person has. So that was a problem. This person might end up lacking a person to pair with. That is coincidence of ones. The other challenge here was indivisibility of some commodities. Indivisibility. Some of the commodities were not able to be subdivided into smaller units of equivalent to what is to be exchanged. For instance, if this person who had a goat here needs something like a dress, we know that the goat has a higher value than the dress. So the person may not be able to subdivide the goat into smaller parts. So that was the other problem, indivisibility of some commodities. Maybe just to prepare us, when you are responding rice, don't say indivisibility of commodities, because it's not all the commodities, but some were having a challenge of being subdivided. Then we also had inconvenience of transport. So this is the other challenge, because the nature of some commodities is that they are immobile. They cannot be moved from one place to another. For instance, something like lard. And we also have another example of a bulky commodity, something that is quite heavy for you to take it all the way to market. So that was bringing another challenge. The other problem was difficulty storing. Storage difficulties. To draw your attention to something like fruits. They are already ripe for the market, and this person is not able to trade them right away. So that is something that cannot be stored. So to wait until that time that it will be taken to the market for exchange. So these people used to experience difficulty storing some of the commodities, especially the perishable ones. The other limitation was lack of standard measure of value. we didn't have something uniform that could have been used to say that commodity A is equivalent this number of units of commodity B. So that again was left at the masses of who will be able to pull in their direction. We didn't have unified forms of measuring value. Maybe to say one goat will be equivalent to how many bags of maize, for instance. One bag of beans will be equated to how many dresses, and so on. So we didn't have such a measure of value. The other challenge was lack of standard for deferred payments. Of standards, this one now is for deferred payments. To defer is to postpone something into the future. In some instances of trade, we might find a scenario where the payments are being pushed forward to be settled in future. So in barter trade, again, it was a problem here to know if you are to pay in the future, how much of that commodity will you be able to use to make the payments. One of the problems that brought about this challenge or limitation here is because of the value of commodities, the way they kept on fluctuating. You can look at something like maize. Maize, when we are off harvesting season, it's something that has a very high, but when we are in harvesting season, its value again falls. And in that case, out of that fluctuation, we may not be able to know a bag of maize will be worth how much in the future. It can also be attributed to change in needs because today somebody might be in need of this commodity, but sometimes in future you find that that need is no longer with them. So in future, when you're paying them using this commodity that they need today, it may not be so relevant to them. The other limitation we have here is that in barter trade we lack specialization. So here to pick up the lines that they are best at and measuring them, because of this fear here that they may have a big problem looking for double coincidences. So they strive trying to do as many things as possible, and that is a challenge. Then we also have lack of unit. Of account, lack of unit of account. So again, we don't have a specific instrument that we can use to that has taken place. For instance, this goat farmer, maybe today they're exchanging goats, tomorrow they might be exchanging something else. So at the end of the day, they may not be able to tell the volume of trade that they've carried out because they don't have a specific unit of measuring the volume of trade that they have gotten involved in. Now, that is now barter trade with its fair share of limitations, and that prompted now traders to think of an alternative, that is what you're going to look at next. So in order to overcome the limitation that we've just highlighted, traders now thought it good for them to introduce what we can call a medium that can facilitate trade with ease, something that can help them exchange their commodities without straining so much about these limitations that we've highlighted. So that is what brought about money. That is what brought about money. And we're going to give money a basic definition, a working definition in this context, as anything that is generally acceptable medium of exchange. So that is money, generally acceptable medium of exchange. In that case, it acts like a bridge. I want this, I want to get the other commodity. So what is it that is going to connect me to that other commodity? So that is money. One thing that you're noting here is that it will be generally acceptable. Nobody will have a problem receiving it, and then it will be used as a connector to facilitate exchange. In our discussion now, the first thing we're going to look at is the characteristic of money. So these characteristics helps us to define what money is. In as much as you're calling it a generally acceptable medium of exchange, there are also other attributes that are also found in money. So let's go now to the characteristics of money. The first one, we get it from this definition here, that it has general acceptability. It has general acceptability. So money has already or rather go through a process that is according to the laws of the land. It will be declared what we call a legal tender by the authority, so that anybody now who holds onto that money will not have a problem introducing it to the other person, because it has already been declared a legal tender. So it is generally acceptable. The other characteristic of money is on durability. Money is able to stay for relatively long duration without getting worn out, or simply without getting torn. So that is the other characteristic. They last relatively long. There is also another characteristic here of money, and that is money is divisible. We are able to separate or subdivide a certain amount of money into smaller units. I want to use a very simple example. If I have a 100 shillings note, if I have that note, if I want to change it into some other smaller denominations like 20 shillings, 50 shillings, or even 10 shillings, I can easily do that. I can subdivide it into smaller units. It is convertible, because when we are explaining again, we encourage students to try as much as possible to avoid repeating the word that they used to mention. So here you can say it can be separated into smaller units. The other characteristic of money is portability. And here we can simply say that money is easily moved, or it can be moved from one place to another with ease. It is not bulky. The other characteristic of money is cognizability. Cognizability. Here we are talking about the ease with which you can recognize money. Today, any Kenyan will not have a problem recognizing, for instance, 100 shillings note, 10 shillings coin. It is easily recognized. This is made possible by the unique features that money has. Of course, when money is being printed or minted, there are those key features or characteristics that are put there such that it will make it easy for anybody to know that it is money. The other characteristic of money is homogeneity. TY at the end, homogeneity. So here again, homo means same. It is the same. So money is identical. 100 shillings note is exactly the same. Our rate note for serialization looks exactly the same with the other note. It looks identical. Different, same denominations look identical. Then the other characteristic of money is stability. The other characteristic is stability. When we are talking about stability here, we are specifically focusing on the value of money, and we'll say that the value of money does not keep on fluctuating so much. Here we are talking also about its purchasing power. So it's able to maintain its purchasing power, and it does not change so significantly within a very short span of time. The other characteristic of money is that it is not easy to forge. It is not easy to forge. Here we are talking about imitating. So it has very key features which makes it very hard for anybody who would like to imitate or rather make their own money similar to what we have possible. So it has security features, and those security features makes it very hard to forge. For instance, if you get a chance and look at a 100 shillings note against some light, you notice that there is a certain line there we call the watermark, and that is a security feature. Anybody who thinks that they can make money, they'll not be able to put such a feature in their or whatever they are going to print. Not easy to forge. Then the other characteristic is on malleability. And malleability here has to do with ease with which the material that is being used to make money can be shaped. Feature can be impressed on it with ease. For the coins that we use, of course, they have some impressions that have been made on them. So the metal that was used was a metal that was easy to shape into the desired shapes or even the images. The last characteristic on money is on scarcity. So again, money is not anything that is so easy to get, because if money is so readily available, it is going to lose its value. It's going to lose its value. So to maintain its value, it has to be relatively scarce to find. So having now discussed, we'll move a step further and look at the functions, the work that money does, functions of money. What does money do? The first thing that money does is that it acts as a medium of exchange. It acts as a medium of exchange. So we started